Hello? Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Barney.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Hi.
How you doing there? Yellow.
Hello.
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 Yo.
Hello.
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 Well, hello there. Welcome to Customer Experience Tales from the Trenches. My name is Mark Mandel, and I'm your host, and I'm so thrilled that you're here with us for the next 30 or 40 minutes as we embark on this new journey of this new program together. Thank you for coming on the journey with us. It's going to be a fun time. While we're together here, I thought I would introduce the show, myself, and then get right into the heart of the material. By way of introduction, as I said, I'm Mark Mandel, and I'm privileged to be your host today and in the future. For those that may not know me personally, I thought I would take a moment just to introduce myself to you so you know who I am. I've been a customer experience guy for, 25 or more years now. And, there's no professional work I'd rather do than help companies think differently about their customers. I've done it repeatedly and taken part in some amazing transformations over the years with some really cool, great brands. And the work is just awesome fun. When I'm not helping companies and their customers, I want to tell you more about me personally. I live here in Raleigh, North Carolina, although I'm a New Yorker by upcoming. My wife and I moved to North Carolina about 10 years ago out of New York, where we got kind of wintered out up there and said, let's move down south where life is better. Love it down here. One of the benefits of being in the Raleigh, North Carolina area is we get to go to some amazing Durham Bulls minor league baseball games. I love the Durham Bulls. I love minor league baseball. It's so much fun. From a customer experience or fan experience standpoint, it's tops. You can't do better than the fun minor league baseball games that we've seen over the years. If you've not been to one of those minor league baseball games, I'm sure there's one somewhere near home for you. Go check it out. You could thank me later. When I'm not at baseball games, I'm a baseball card collector nerd. I love baseball cards. I got into that hobby, 50 years ago as a little kid, and I've loved it since. I've collected all sorts of memorabilia over the years, and most recently, I've moved into vintage baseball that I just think is fantastic. The stories those cards tell can't begin to explain how cool that is. In fact, as a hobbyist, next week I'm going to Cleveland, Ohio for almost a week to get together with 80 or 90,000 other of my closest card collector friends to buy, sell, and trade cards with one another. I'm pretty excited about that. That's going to be a fun week. Well, enough about me. Let me tell you a little bit more about the show, Customer Experience Tales from the Trenches. We're trying to build a very practical show each and every month here where we'll get together and talk about some real-world, high-impact ideas in customer experience. We're not going to sit here and talk about why customer experience matters or what is Net Promoter Score. No, we're going to put those things long in the rearview mirror. Those things are just so fundamental and so basic and not something that's new or exciting. I want to focus on new stuff, high impact stuff, things that other people may not even be talking about yet, and share that with you as we progress on this journey month in and month out together. It's going to be a great time. Every show is going to be broken down to 4 or 5, we'll call them chapters, maybe sections. Those chapters are going to kind of show us where we're doing in terms of each show's composition and cover some really important topics together. On this show and some of the upcoming ones, we're going to have, as I said, 5 sections, and they're going to be broken down like this. We're going to start each show with what I'm going to call my aha moment, the thing that happened in the customer experience space over the last, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, that really blew me away. Things that I found eye-opening, things that really excited me, things that caught me by surprise and made me go, wow, that was cool. More on that in just a moment. There's also, as you probably know very well, there's no shortage of thought leadership in the world of customer experience work, the work that you and I do and love. There's some brilliant folks, really amazing, empathetic people who are in this type of work, many of whom who have taken a few minutes of their days to compile some of their thought leadership, some of their best ideas, their biggest ideas, and put them together in books and have shared books with one another. In fact, if I look on my office bookshelf over there, I see no less than, I don't know, about 100 or 150 books all about customer experience work. I helped, in fact, write one most recently with another friend, and we'll talk more about that next month. One of the things I thought on the topic of books that might be fun to do here on our show is to do a little bit of a book club each month, where we take one or two books that I think were really groundbreaking books, big books on the area of customer experience management, books that make a difference, and share them with you in like a little book report to tell you things I liked and didn't like about those books. More on that in just a moment. The heart of this show, however, is going to be a conversation. This week, I've invited a good friend to have a conversation about a very, very big topic with me. That topic is going to be about AI, and specifically AI in CX. My friend who's going to join, his name is Mark Zides. If you don't know Mark Zides, boy, you need to check him out. Mark Zides is a rock star. Mark is the CEO of a company that I've watched from the outside looking in, I don't know, for maybe 10 years now, 8 years, something like that. They're called Luminoso. They're up in the Boston, Massachusetts area. And if you don't know Luminoso and are in the CX space, you owe it to yourself to check out luminoso.com to see what they're about. I can't endorse them more highly enough. Mark is going to join me for about a 10 or 15 minute open forum chat, just he and I sitting down and kind of riffing with one another all about customer experience and AI and where those things come together and what he's seeing in the industry, at his company, and his customers. They're doing amazing work. I mean, like groundbreaking work. And I'm an old cynic these days. So I'm telling you, I'm blown away and excited by them. More on Mark's story in just a few minutes when he joins. When Mark and I wrap up our conversation, there's going to be two more sections of this show to come. The fourth and fifth are as follows. I figure every great show needs great giveaways. You guys are giving me the gift of joining me, sharing your time with me here on this journey. I thought I would give a gift back to you for being here. So we're going to do a little bit of a gift giveaway toward the end of the show. More on that in a few minutes. And then finally, the fifth part of the show, where we're going to talk about what's coming next, what's coming in August and September on future shows, so you'll know what to expect and when to expect it. So let's get this begun with the big aha, the big thing that caught me by most surprise, that really opened my eyes over the last few weeks about customer experience work. The single biggest aha for me was the energy level at the Forrester Customer Experience Conference. Yep, I went to Forrester again this year. Must have been my 14th or 15th year in a row going to that event. I love the event. In fact, don't tell other people I said this, but I think the Forrester show might be the best event in the customer experience entire industry each and every year. It's a highlight for me to go there. But the last few years were kind of a lull in that event. People, sure, they turned up. They came to Nashville in past years and New York before that. But they came as tire kickers. They came as window shoppers. They came as just people looking to get away from their day jobs for a couple of days and talk with other like-minded people. This year was different. This June event down in Nashville just blew the roof off the Gaylord Hotel in terms of the energy level in that room. There were 1,000 or more people walking around there for 4 full days. Companies spent time and energy to spend a dozen or more people to Tennessee to go investigate what's really going on in CX right now and to make differences to their companies tomorrow in high impact ways. They were no longer just window shoppers. They were no longer just tire kickers. They were there to ask the hard questions and get clear, actionable answers. That was the most exciting thing about being there. And it just showed me for the first time in a couple of years that the customer experience profession is alive and well, and certainly vibrant in terms of change management and the people who are trying to do this great hard work. I was thrilled to see that. You couldn't walk around the Forrester show without hearing AI or artificial intelligence everywhere you look. AI was everywhere. If you walked in the exhibitor hall from booth to booth to booth, everybody had an AI talk track. If you went to the conference events, the sessions, the talks, they were all talking about AI as well. AI was every place. AI is not new. AI is big, though, and it's becoming more accessible to mortal people, guys like you and I, for the first time ever. And I want to talk a lot about that, but by comparing it with three other big transformational changes I've seen over history that I think are important to talk about for just a second. If I think back to the late 1970s, I remember the very earliest personal computers coming onto the scene. Radio Shack, Commodore, Atari, brands from 50 years ago, long gone, made a difference. They brought computers to the home for the first time and made them accessible. Computers used to be, before that, big room-sized machines that cost millions of dollars to build and run. And now you can get them for a few $100s and put them on your home office desk. First time ever, it changed everything. Fast forward a few years into the mid-1990s and the birth of the internet, and particularly the World Wide Web. Oh my goodness, the web, again, changed everything. The internet wasn't new when the web happened in the 90s. It was around for maybe 10 years, but the web and companies like AOL and Netscape and others, again, made this complex, esoteric thing accessible to mere mortal folks. It changed everything once again. And then the third wave I'll talk about briefly here was in 2007, when Apple came along and introduced the computer in your pocket, the iPhone, where they took the idea of a computer, an internet device, and a phone, mashed them together, and put it in a 4-inch device that I could carry with me everywhere that I go. And boy, oh boy, that computer in my pocket, that iPhone, once again, made the world accessible to me and changed everything. I think we are at the precipice of that happening again with the availability of AI. Again, I said a few minutes ago, AI is not new. AI has been around for 50 years now, maybe more, but it was largely esoteric, largely scientific, largely academic, and now it's becoming available to companies who really want to leverage AI in thoughtful, cool, impactful ways. I mentioned Mark Zides and Luminoso a few minutes ago. They are doing absolutely groundbreaking work in this space. I think they are a fantastic example of a what to do example, or a positive impact example on things happening in that intersection, again, of CX and AI. So when in doubt, I thought, let's bring an expert into this conversation. I wanted to introduce my good friend, Mark Zides, who will join me here, and we'll talk a lot about the work that he's doing and what he's seeing in the space. Hey, Mark, thanks for being here with me.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Congrats on the new show.
It's great. It's great to spend a few minutes with you here. Thank you. Mark, I was talking a moment ago about the impact of AI in CX. And it dawns on me that, well, I think I know Luminoso pretty well, having watched you guys for, as I said, almost 10 years now from the outside. There are many on this call who may not know Luminoso. Are you able to take just a couple of minutes and just kind of tell us the Luminoso story, kind of who's the company, where do you guys come from, and kind of what are you about? What's in your DNA about AI? I want to hear about that.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Appreciate you having me on the show again. So yeah, Luminoso has been around for a long time, like AI has been around for a long time. We were born out of MIT labs in 2010. A couple of really smart linguistical scientists, PhDs, built this really cool tool. And essentially, the premise of it was that they wanted to build a natural language processing, natural language understanding data analytics company. And over the last 15 years or so, it's evolved into a CX platform that can provide real-time insights for voice of customer, voice of employee, product reviews in what we call real time. Our customers love us, and we've evolved into a really powerful SaaS product for many types of companies. Our technology enables organizations to analyze large volumes of text data from sources like customer feedback, social media, surveys, reviews, where we extract valuable insights to inform decision-making processes for those people to make, better strategic decisions. So, the AI platform utilizes advanced machine learning algorithms to understand the meaning and sentiment behind the text data in multiple languages, 14 languages to be exact. And this enables our business users to uncover trends and identify patterns, summaries, and extract actionable insights from textual information to make, better business decisions than more traditional methods. That's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. It sounds like there's a lot of good science behind the platform, which is better than a lot of companies who seem to be more smoke and mirrors. You guys have kind of rigorous science, and that makes all the difference, I think, for you guys. It's also clear to me, Mark, that while you're the CEO there, you only have been there for about a year. You came in from the outside to take over the shop and to help drive the business forward. I'm curious, as an outsider coming into an established company to help lead and run that company, what attracted you to Luminoso? What was the opportunity that you saw that you said, boy, I want to be attached to this group of folks and doing this type of work?
Yeah, so obviously AI is the biggest market, transformational, changing, technology that's going on in the marketplace. So from the last business that I was fortunate enough to successfully exit, I was looking around at opportunities, and this one came up, and it was an entrepreneurial opportunity to build upon a great technology that had world-class clients and an awesome team. So the company had not been really focused, the last couple of years around its core strengths and really they go to market. So I believe with my background, my sales, my networking strengths, we could all come together and build, an AI powered, company together. So that was really both a challenge and an opportunity that I saw. And, it's been about 14 months and I'm having a great time.
That's fantastic. I'm thinking a lot about AI. And as I said, having been at Forrester and other events recently, AI is everywhere. But I think AI means, in my opinion, at least, different things to different people. And it's interesting to see, they're almost like whatever the opposite of guilt by association is, people want the associative benefits of the terms AI, because they think if I'm an AI company, I'm going to get a certain amount of cool factor. And if I get that kind of cool factor, I get whether it be additional investment money or more customers or more market opportunities. And it's interesting that different things mean different people. From my standpoint, I've been around kind of the text analytics part, like you're part of the AI sphere, for years with different companies that I've either been part of or have been partnered with. And, many of those companies really, they've packaged themselves as AI, but they're not. I'm not going to sit here and point fingers and name names, but I could say in certainty that the reality is that a lot of these companies employ a little bit more than just lists of keywords and phrases that get wired into your software, and in many ways just simply watch for those things like search, and when they happen they trigger some kind of notification or event. So imagine if somebody said lawsuit in a piece of customer feedback, it gets tagged as legal because the word lawsuit was there. But that's the extent of the intelligence. My sense is that, without getting into all the geeky stuff, because there's other conversations about where we can take that, I'm curious, and you guys take it a lot further. You guys have, as you said earlier, built this really sophisticated language model, this linguistic model that allows your platform to learn the spoken or written words the way we learn as humans and how we interpret information. You guys take it a lot further, and I think that makes, in my opinion at least, all the difference. But I could tell you there's a lot of posers out there. I could tell you there's a lot of people who said, yeah, we're AI because they have a vested interest in saying they're AI, when in fact, who knows what they really are. But I wanted to make sure to point out that you guys have a very different story. From my standpoint, you guys are doing great work and you have some amazing customers out there. I'd love if you can take us on just a journey for just a moment, Mark, and tell us about one of your favorite stories, one of your favorite customers, something that comes to mind that you said, boy, that turned out to be a home run. That turned out to be better than expected for us and for the client. Is there a story that you can share without breaking confidentiality agreements along the way?
Yeah. Let me answer or just respond to sort of your poser kind of cool factor point, right? So,
sure.
My perspective. Look, I'm new in this space, but I understand CX and customer experience, and I believe at a macro perspective, right? A lot of my background, if people want to check me out on LinkedIn, I work for some big four firms, E&Y, PwC, Monitor Group, which became Deloitte. So you kind of have that, boardroom experience that, guys like you and I have had. And, I believe that CEOs and technology leaders need an AI strategy, right? With that across all dimensions of the market. It's crucial to differentiate between marketing hype and the real impactful AI applications, right? So whether, AI has become a buzzword, it's essential that customers and investors discern the difference between both of those, right? So at Luminoso, we have efficacy in our AI solutions. So we're not just about being cool, but we also, to your point, can get into the crux of what a business or use case is. So we can solve a lot of these problems around the nuances of words and sort of the differences of how people analyze what their customers are saying. So there's really a big distinction between who can claim their AI and who's a real true machine learning company like Luminoso. So I think that at the end of the day, as cliche as that sounds, you got to be able to prove an ROI, to why a vendor is going to work for a particular or with a particular customer. But, around the use case, around the business problem, we've had several. We've done some NPS work, right, where we can actually demonstrate that if we take CSAT scores, for example, from a customer and ingest it into our tool, we can actually see the movement of NPS, even if it's a little, it's measurable, right? So if NPS improves, we can show an ROI, to a company. So we've done that for a couple of, healthcare technology companies. We've also, I think our biggest claim to fame is time to insights. So a lot of times when all this data comes in, whether it's survey data or product reviews, it just takes a lot of time to synthesize the data. Well, our technology is really easy to use, right? So, it's simple. And, the data comes in. If you're a data analyst, you're a data scientist, you're a business user, it's easy to kind of bring all that together, move it into our dashboard, and then use our ChatGPT assistant, which we call Helios, to prompt it to say, give me the top 3 things I should do as a marketing analyst or as a CMO to actually enable or improve our product marketing or our product in the marketplace. So we've done that in the CX space from a standpoint of listening to what customers are saying about a product. And that's really where we've seen, the biggest improvement, or our customers saying, wow, we'd like more of that, around our product. Think about CPG, think about technology firms, without kind of giving away some of the awesome companies that we work with.
Fascinating. Hey, you mentioned ChatGPT. It's an inevitable conversation topic, so let's talk about that for a second. The whole area of generative AI or Gen AI is certainly in the news these days. Companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and others have raised, $1 billion or hundreds of millions of dollars each to go exploit this new technology to bring it to the masses, but it's really in its infancy. I also realized that generative AI, like I'm talking about with those types of companies, is just one, we'll call it category of AI. And the reality is, there are pros and cons to generative AI. There are pros and cons to other techniques as well. You mentioned a second ago that the Luminoso platform takes advantage in some ways of a generative AI capability as a way to more interface with your data than it is about generating the insights themselves. And I'm curious, do you see a place for how do you separate, I should say, the places that you operate your business and help impact your customers versus, let's say, generative AI? Because clearly you're not the same as one another, and there's going to be advantages and disadvantages. And I'm curious what you see the advantages or opportunities for you guys in a growing generative AI space.
Yeah, look, this is a hot topic. It's a great question. We could probably talk about this for an hour.
Sure.
But, my brief perspective, and let me answer it as quickly as I can in a couple of ways, right? So ChatGPT or generative AI, it's an incredible tool for people to quickly get the answer they're looking for. So it's kind of like a cheat code, right? So just like, search, 10 years ago, Google came out and you could just prompt, you could ask a question and give you the answer, right? ChatGPT or generative AI is that, times 100 or thousands, because now it's giving you sort of, the answers before it's giving you the answers to the question, right? In a way. So it's got a lot of different applications, right? If you're a marketing person, you can build marketing plans, you can write copy, you can write code just by asking a couple prompts. So, customers are looking to implement this technology into their tech stacks, and they want to give their customers a better experience, right? So you look at it through the lens of a CX person, it's really driving innovation at these companies to automate several processes in every company who's using it. So it's really changing the way that decisions are being made at these companies. And I think what companies and decision makers need to do is figure out what's the application, what's the use case, and really what's the project that you can apply it to. So in the case of Luminoso, our customers are coming back and saying, hey, your tool is, a Mercedes-Benz, to use an analogy, that gives us all this great sentiment analysis, thematic summaries, concepts, themes. But now we want, give us the 3 things that we can do with that data, right? And that's what generative AI can do. So we overlaid it, onto our tool to kind of, again, I'll go back to the cheat code thing, right? All in the gaming world, right? Everyone wants the cheat code, or everyone wants to open up that new, unlocked, thing that gets them to the next level in a game. That's kind of what this tool and this platform can do. So again, like I said, we can talk about it, Mark, for an hour, but it really depends on the company, on what business problem you're looking to solve. It can be used in so many different aspects, and that's why, to your earlier point, it's so transformational in so
That's
many.
Amazing. Amazing. It's funny, you talk about cheat codes. One of the things I realized about many folks, myself included, of course, who come to these podcasts and webinars, everybody's looking for a new idea. Everybody's looking for that cheat code that they can take back to their CX jobs and think about and put into place as soon as this afternoon or tomorrow. I was going to share a story with you because I think it'll resonate not just with you, Mark, but with our friends who are listening in. It goes back a couple of years ago. I remember in the work I was doing, I was called to the president's office of a large B2B technology company. And he had told me a story that I'll never forget the words because they kind of etched into my mind from that conversation. He said to me, we just gave $8 million to one of the large consulting outfits out there to implement what he called his NPS program. And it was interesting because he said he picked up a piece of paper from his desk and he goes, this is my report that I get month in and month out off this multi-million-dollar NPS program. And he said, there's months when my score goes up, and he goes, bloop, and it goes up. He goes, there's months when my score goes down, it goes, bloop, and it goes down. And he goes, it looks like a hospital EKG chart. It's like bleep, 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 up and down, but month after month. And I'll never forget the line that he used. He goes, when the months when it goes up, he goes, my boss, the CEO, calls me. And he goes, you're a hero when it goes up. He says, when it goes down, the same boss calls me. And I'm a moron. He says, I'm trying to just do one thing, he said. I want to maximize the hero to moron ratio in my day. He said, I just need to get it right just a few more times and I get it wrong. The problem, he said, is I don't know why it goes up. I don't know why it goes down. Because the way we designed that NPS program, he said, in those days, was really following the original Fred Reichheld game plan of Net Promoter Score as the ultimate question. I asked the question, how likely would you be to recommend our company to a friend or colleague? We get a numeric score. Sometimes I'm a 10, sometimes I'm a 3. But we don't really take the time to understand qualitatively why. And if there was no cheat code that comes to my mind as I sit here in July of 2024, so a few years after that conversation played out, that you guys can collectively take back to your companies and to your ideas, is to focus, please, by all means, at this stage, focus on the qualitative, focus on the why, focus on the reasons for the score, much more so than even the score itself. The score is just, in my opinion, a great excuse to come back and say, why do you give us the 10? Why do you give us the 3? Why do you give us the 6? And tell us in your own words why. Because if you're not focusing on the why, you're kidding yourself. And now as the amount of feedback continues to go up and the amount of customer engagements and conversations go up, that why, that feedback, that open-ended commentary is just harder and harder to get your arms around just because of the sheer volume of it. And it seems, Mark, if you wanted that cheat code, talk to a guy like you to help them get their arms around the why, help them be able to understand what's making the whys happen. And maybe more to the point, when I'm a 10, what are the comments that are most closely driving 10s as 10s? When I'm a 3, what are the comments that are most closely driving me into the other department over there? There seems to be a huge opportunity, but so many of these companies are still chasing scores. They still want to know, yay, I'm a 78, aren't I great? Or I'm a 62, or I'm a 37, or I'm a -9. And the reality is there's so much more to it than that. What could you add to that, Mark, if anything, in terms of just cheat codes or ideas that our friends here could take back beyond just going from the score to the reason? Is there more to the story that you want to share?
Yeah, again, another great question, another great, frame story, Mark. We could probably have a whole other podcast on that topic alone. But what I would say is, there's so much unstructured text data in the world. 80% of all data is unstructured, right? And it's just growing exponentially every year. So for companies that want to get a better understanding of, how to measure results or how to measure what their customers are saying, you really need to have a platform or tool or process on how to measure, the inputs or the data coming in, right? Whether it's through social channels, through, product feedback, through, secondary research, like whatever, surveys, like however the it comes in. I don't have a cheat code. If I had that magical, wand, as I say, I'd probably be long retired by now. But what I would say is the application of whatever tool you bring in, right? So whether it's a total CX platform or, it's you're outsourcing it to a call center, or, you have your own team internally that's doing this work, you really want to find, a platform that can help you get to those results accurately, without bias, efficiently, and improving customer service every day, right? So our audience today are CX people, right? So, you look at, for example, chatbots and virtual assistants, right? Those tools can provide 24/7 support, enhancing customer satisfaction, right? But how do you measure that? You have to have the tool in place to be able to measure, or take those software tools and be able to measure it and quantify it. Like you said, you got to be able to quantify these results, right? So, again, if it's target marketing, if it's querying, if it's whatever sort of dimensions that are put into place from implementing this type of solution, you want to have those KPIs all set up. So that story you told, where that person, the bot, the CEO says, well, wait a minute, 1 month you're here and the next month you're down here. If you set it up properly and you map it to what the goals of the organization are, that's where you're going to drive the results. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't have the cheat code in my hip pocket, but you want to work with smart guys like you, or a consulting firm that can, certainly map out sort of what a tool or what a technology will do. And, the one thing I'll say about Luminoso is we can do that, right? Because we're just the plug and play engine that can go into any type of survey tool or existing tech stack and can empower, I'll say, the CX experience. So that's what's kind of cool working with us, is to, enable those results and customer experiences.
I think I can't recall if it was the Forrester analysts who wrote about this, or the Gartner, or one of the other analyst firms that covered this, but they took the world of AI and they kind of subdivided it at least into two buckets. And they talk about employee-facing AI and customer-facing AI. And as far as I could tell, both are alive and kicking, but I could tell you that opening up AI as a primary contact channel for your customers externally is full of risks. I could tell you that you hear story after story. Some of them are newsworthy. Some of them involve litigation, all sorts of terrible things happening between some of the biggest brands who said, you know what, we could get these AI tools and we could knock out our call center. And we could, instead of having, 500 thoughtful representatives taking phone calls, we'd do pennies on the dollar. We'll just let AI handle that and we'll be all done. I personally ran into a problem with that myself, and it was just a week or so ago. I'm a car guy and I'm a Tesla guy. And I could tell you that I had leased a Tesla 3 years ago, when with all leases, leases come to an end and you have to go turn it back in and get a different car. And I turned in my Tesla at the end of the lease. Everything was quiet and normal and everything went fine. And then I started getting invoices from Tesla about the car that wasn't returned, and how I still owe them a car, and they, out of the kindness of their hearts, are extending my lease to give me more time with the car that I clearly wasn't ready to give up, although I returned it last month. And I tried to email them. There's no way to email them. I went to their website. There's no contact information on the website. Try finding a phone number for Tesla. I found a phone number. I called them and I got into this crazy AI loop where the AI bot answered the call thoughtfully and intelligently. But when my query, my thing that I was calling about wasn't one of the easy things, it wasn't one of the, hey, when is my payment due or what address should I send it to? But it was, hey, I don't have a car anymore and you're still billing me for this thing. What do I do with that? There was no chance that the AI was going to be able to figure that out. And there was no ability for me to escape this loop. And it just took a bad, frustrating situation and made it that much worse. Because
it sounds like the LLM wasn't trained to know your situation, right? So that's what kind of is one of the biggest challenges with this. But go ahead. So didn't mean to interrupt.
But it's interesting you talk about that because, from my experience, you mentioned something when you were talking about your own business, about Luminoso a few minutes ago, and you talked about bias in AI. And how in some ways training the model or setting up the language model setup so that it could have anticipated my need would have created bias, because
Right.
You're in effect programming the AI to say, if somebody talks about lease returns, handle it this way or route it to a representative or do something, right? Don't just put them in a loop. But that creates a kind of this fishing expedition, almost like this pre-wired scenario that says, if this happens, then do this. One of the things I think is a hallmark about real, more advanced AI is that it could kind of figure that out dynamically as it sees the data. In some ways, I'm going to use a loose terminology. It learns. And then as it learns, it gets smarter and better at handling these types of cases over time. But I just share the Tesla story because, from a customer experience perspective, I was miserable. These bills started coming, and after the bills came and there was no way to shut off the invoices, then the threatening text messages started to come. And they said, now they're almost in effect telling me I've stolen their car. And that's gotten even worse. And so I'm not going to go down that path, but my goodness, that was quite the example of, for me, what not to do. And one of the reasons why I don't think AI today is truly ready for prime time externally, facing your customers, replacing human beings with it. I think if we could steal a terminology, maybe Mark, you and I might agree on this, instead of thinking of AI as artificial intelligence, I'm going to steal a term I've read recently called augmented intelligence, where it's sort of this ability to take employees' work and supercharge them. I mean, think about like you were saying about even analyzing customer feedback. Sure, the old days we could have just printed it all out and read it, and scored it different ways. And the reality is some people still do that. But the truth is that why would you want to do that? Because that just simply doesn't scale if you could in turn augment that person with the ability to have an AI tool to help them speed through reviewing thousands and thousands of customer pieces of feedback all day long. They could take 12 hours of work and condense it to 5 minutes in some
Right.
ways. And that's the groundbreak. So, cautionary tale, external deployments, I wouldn't do it right now, at least not broadly. Experiments, knock yourself out. Don't replace primary contact channels with AI. It's not a good place to go. But internally, whether it be helping those same call center agents serve their customers better, whether it be helping analysts learn their way around customer feedback better, or other internal use cases, I think it's the real deal and here to stay.
Yeah, let me just comment real quick. So I think knowledge management is a great use case, right? To your point where, if you're a call center rep and you want to get an answer very quickly and you use AI just to kind of, prompt it or bring it right up to you, I think that's an awesome way to kind of enhance, the user experience. You mentioned risks around AI. Look, it's not perfect, right? These LLMs need to get trained and they're constantly getting trained every day, every minute. Data privacy is a challenge in the marketplace, right? With respect to AI, companies are nervous around, well, okay, if you're going to analyze my data, where's it going? Where's it coming from? All that. And then that bleeds into biases, right? Which you and I could probably have a whole, podcast on biases. It's like, a couple of the biggest companies, super hyperscalers out there have had some challenges on, bias, in their LLM models. And, these are designed to avoid, but they can negatively impact customer interactions, right? And then when you talk about AI versus augmented intelligence, I love that because, what it does is you don't want to take out the decision-making process of a human, right? Like humans react. It's a feel. It's feel the person out. It's read the room. That all goes away with AI, right? If it's straight machine learning. So the emphasis, enhancing human capabilities rather than replacing them is helpful, right? So that knowledge management thing. Empowerment. So AI tools should empower customers and employees by providing additional support, insights, and efficiencies. Like that's where I think AI should be used. And it's got to be balanced, right? So it's got to be, used in the right way and not just taking over, like you said, that experience you had at Tesla. It's got to balance that. So that's my 2 cents. But again, it's certainly changed the game in the last couple of years, and it's only going to, quote unquote, replace. You don't want it to replace humans, although it may in certain companies, because some of the mundane tasks can be replaced with, AI. But I think that you still want the human factor, especially in CX. It's absolutely critical.
Absolutely. I mean, the downsides are clear, right? If you do it poorly or wrong, you not only risk bad customer experiences, you open up doors to liability even. You want to be really mindful of that.
Right.
Mark, thank you for hanging out with me here today. I hope you continue to hang out for the rest of this show. We're going to touch on a couple of other topics here before we wrap up our call. I mentioned before this idea of books in a book club. There's 2 books I wanted to take a few minutes and just share a little bit of thoughts about with you. I'm going to hold the first one up here. This is a book from a couple of friends of mine, Michael Hinshaw and Diane Majors, that I got earlier this year. It's called Experience Rules, the Experience Operating System, and 8 Keys to Enable It. I could tell you that I read this book in about 2 sittings, cover to cover, from beginning to end, and it just blew me away. And the thing that Michael and Diane cover so well in here is that they talk about how do you take this idea of customer experience and truly embed it in your organization, in your culture, in your process with your people. This is not just about measurement and running surveys and getting tech. That's certainly part of it, but they're talking about now taking the results of that and embedding it for action in your company. Again, it's called Experience Rules, and they talk about this experience operating system and being embedded in companies. I love this book. I highly recommend it. The other book is sort of like my customer experience Bible, and I want to make sure you can see this clearly on the screen. It's called Information Dashboard Design, Displaying Data for At-a-Glance Monitoring by Stephen Few. I've had this book up on my shelf here for probably 10 years now. It's a beautiful book where they talk all about how do you take information and package it for non-experienced consumers of it. How do you take complex analytical data and make it digestible and interesting to people who are not necessarily data people? And they help take those topics and they make visual examples of what to do and what not to do. I think my favorite passage from this book is right on like the 3rd or 4th page. Maybe you could relate to this, guys. They say, just because your software topic or your software platform of your choice can make a dashboard with 37 different kinds of charts on it, all on one screen, please, God, try not to do that. Filling up a screen with charts for the sake of filling up your real estate is ineffective, he talks about in here, and talks about how do you make information digestible to mere mortals. I can't recommend this book highly enough. These are 2 of my favorite books here. And in fact, what I'd like to do as we talk about the giveaways here is to make these 2 books my giveaway for this month. What I'm going to do is we're going to pick one of you guys at random to give you Michael and Diane's book. I'm going to take one of you guys at random and give you Stephen's book. And hopefully you get a chance to enjoy these things. What I'd like to do, if you're on this call, the live call at least, is to go to the comment section of the tool. And if you think back to the very opening scene of this call, there was a short video that was called the hello video. There's a bunch of people on phones going, hello, hello, hello. And it was a fun little video, just a fun little 30-second video. It goes back a few years ago, and I'm not sure if you know where that video came from. Let's make a little fun game out of this, and I'm going to pick 2 people at random who know exactly where that video came from. And those are the 2 folks that are going to get these books. So with that said, think back on that video, that hello video. Where did it come from? What's the story behind that video? And pick 2 of you guys to get copies of these books. We'll announce that by email as a thank you after this call wraps up. So let's talk about the future and what's to come. Next month, we're going to spend some time together just in this same format in August to talk about another big topic like AI, and that's transformation. I used that word a few times on this call. I think transformation is where the rubber hits the road. That's where we see change happen. And customer experience, as you guys well know, is a change management topic. It's not just about measurement. It's not just about analytics. It's about using your information and your insights strategically in the business to drive change. Because if we're not changing, we fall into that same trap of that old Albert Einstein quote about doing the same things the same way and hoping for a better outcome. So I'm going to have a couple of guests, 2 guests on the call in August, one of whom is actually Michael Hinshaw, the gentleman behind this book. And he's going to be, he works at a company called Encore, where he's the president. Michael and I are going to be sitting down with a gentleman who I think of as my CX brother in arms. His name is Eric Smuda. Eric has been on the client side, the practitioner side, for a decade with companies like Avis and Hertz, where he rose up to be the head of customer experience at both of those companies. And now he's at an insurance company doing fascinating work called Likewise. Eric and Michael and I are going to sit down and really talk about how do you drive true transformational outcomes in your business. And we're going to do that towards the end of August when we get back together here. So guys, with that, let's make this a wrap for now. We're at about 45 or 46 minutes into this conversation. And just again, as I started out, to say thank you. Thank you from my heart. Thank you sincerely. And thank you to you, Mark, for joining me here with the opportunity to tell your story to our friends. Guys, we'll see you in about a month, and please stay in touch. Until then, have great customer experiences. Take care now, and thank you for everything.